Evo nas na našem trećem panelu koji je vezan za primjenu veštačke inteligencije u energetici. I'll switch to English as this panel is now in English only. Hopefully everyone here will perfectly understand what our panelists have to say. This panel is going to be moderated by Professor Goran Radosavljević, who is of course affiliated with FEFA. And the panelists today are Dr. Iván Martén. His affiliations are so numerous, I don't know where to begin, but what I know is that he has been a senior manager at, or senior managing partner at Boston Consulting Group, and now heads the Basque Institute of Competitiveness. Then Mr. Stéphane Rousselet, sorry for my French, it's not one of my stronger points, who is from the World Petroleum Council. Then followed by Mr. Nikola Jeličić, who is head of digital transformation at OMV, the Austrian oil company in Vienna. And finally, Mr. Marko Marjanović, who is from Belgrade office of Microsoft. So these are the four panelists. As you can see, their expertises are different, but I believe they all have something very useful to say to all of us today. So Goran, you can take over and introduce the panelists to us, or let them introduce themselves.
Thank you, Miloš. Am I here? I'm not here. Why I'm not here?
You are.
Am I?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because I suppose that I will be in the main screen here. Okay, never mind. Hello everybody. Welcome to one very interesting panel, Artificial Intelligence in Energy. When I heard first time for artificial intelligence, that was in early 18, in the famous Terminator movie, when the artificial intelligence Skynet took the world. And today, 30, 40 years almost later, we're speaking about artificial intelligence in different areas. Today, with me, as Miloš said, Iván Martén from, I would say, the world leader expert in energy sector, and he will share today with us his experience in this topic. Marko Marjanović from Microsoft. If somebody produce the Skynet in the future, that will probably be Microsoft, and I will ask him how much time we have until the Judgment Day. Then we have Stéphane Rousselet. He's from the younger generation leader. Worked with Total, with Bain Consultant, and then it worked with Petroleum Council. And probably his generation will live with artificial intelligence more than our generation. And then in the end, Nikola Jeličić from OMV, the regional oil and gas company, and we'll be glad to hear in which area they are implementing artificial intelligence. We will start with Iván. Even if you want to say some more about you, but I think that you're so famous here, then in energy sector, then we don't need to introduce you even. Can you tell us what are the main topics in the area of energy regarding artificial intelligence and using the digitalization process, and what we can expect in the future?
Thank you very much, Goran. And first of all, thank you very much for the invitation from the Belgrade Metropolitan University to participate in this very interesting event on what I would say is a very relevant topic for the energy sector and for society at large, no? And it's a real honor for me to be here, no? Right now we have two major transformations that are affecting our society. The first one is the digitalization transformation, and the second one is the decarbonization, or the energy transition, as we also refer to. The digitalization of the energy sector is a reality. There are many technologies involved, from virtual reality and advanced reality, passing by cloud computing and advanced analytics, towards machine learning, deep learning, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence, with the focus of this event. And all these is bringing numerous advantages in terms of cost reduction, for example, predictive maintenance, but also in the way of working in the industry. For example, the remote control of drilling operations, where drilling being one of the main areas for artificial intelligence, is helping or is facilitating that more women are joining the industry, because now you can manage drilling operations from a very long distance through all the digitalization. The second area is decarbonization. Decarbonization is real and is urgent. The greenhouse gases emissions currently total 53 gigatons of CO2 equivalent, and according to science-based targets initiative, in order to meet the 2016 Paris Agreement, we must reduce those emissions by 50% by the end of this decade. So it's a huge and very ambitious target. Therefore, what I would like to talk today is about how we can use the artificial intelligence, or the power of artificial intelligence, to reduce carbon and cost in the industry. By using artificial intelligence, I believe that we can achieve between 5 and 10% of the needed reduction, representing 2.6 and 5.3 gigatons of CO2 equivalent. So, I mean, it's a real promise and something that is worth investigating, is worth investing. Many companies are trying to committing to limit their environmental impact, but they face two challenges: transparency on where exactly CO2 emissions come from, especially in the case of Scope 3, and scalable solutions to reduce them, but with a positive financial impact. And for me, the greatest strength of artificial intelligence lies in its ability to learn by experience, collecting massive amounts of data, intuiting connections that humans can fail to notice, and recommending appropriate actions based on them. There are three roles of the artificial intelligence, or three components of the role of artificial intelligence. The first one is artificial intelligence can help to monitor emissions. Artificial intelligence-powered data engineering allows us to track emissions throughout their carbon footprint. Now we can collect data from operations and from every part of the value chain, including materials and component suppliers, and even downstream users of the products. And artificial intelligence, therefore, can exploit the data from new sources like sensors and satellites, and can generate estimates of missing data and establish the level of certainty of the results. The second component is that artificial intelligence allows us to do predicting emissions. Predictive artificial intelligence can forecast future emissions across a company carbon footprint in relation to carbon reduction efforts, new carbon reduction methodologies, and future demand. And as a result, they can set and adjust reduction targets in a much more accurate way. And finally, artificial intelligence, by providing detailed insights into every aspect of the value chain, prescriptive artificial intelligence can improve efficiency, therefore reducing carbon emissions and cutting costs. So with all that, I mean, oil and gas are heavily investing in this area. They are developing artificial intelligence solutions through new innovation vehicles, like, for example, Shell Game Changer or Chevron Technology Ventures. They are acquiring companies. Chevron has done 7 transactions and Shell 5 transactions in the last 5 years, and are also signing a diversity of partnerships, like the one between Microsoft, Bloomberg, and Chevron. And they are developing a lot of new talent. I mean, Shell and Chevron, for example, and I have selected one example from Europe and another example from the US, not to see that this is something that affects worldwide the industry. Shell and Chevron both have 2.5% of their employees with data, with digital skills and roles. So the future generation is going to be very active in this. No? And with all that, I mean, oil and gas companies are using these machine learning models, including tools that predict maintenance problems and CO2 emissions, to predict energy consumption and emissions of all the units for the next 5 years. this specific company has lowered carbon emissions by 1.5%, and the system has achieved 87% accuracy in predicting equipment failures, which is also extremely important. Having seen all the positives of artificial intelligence, we also must be aware that artificial intelligence programs contribute to the emissions problems. No? There is a recent study from the University of Massachusetts estimating that the energy required to train state-of-the-art natural language processing algorithms to produce human-like text generates more than 270 1,000 kilograms of CO2. But having said that, I mean, the constant improvement of the artificial intelligence technology is also reducing the emissions that are created by the huge consumer in power and electricity that artificial intelligence requires. In short, just to finalize, I believe that artificial intelligence can help companies reduce their environmental impact while also alleviating the financial pressure they face as they emerge from the COVID-19 crisis.
Thank you, Iván. Environmental issue is one of the big issue in whole world now, especially in Serbia. We're living in Belgrade, and Belgrade is one of the most polluted city in the world, and I'm glad to hear that we can use also artificial intelligence and technology to reduce faster than we expected. You mentioned Microsoft when you spoke. We know that Microsoft is one of the biggest player in the market, also in the market of in the field of new technology. And Marko, you are working in some project linked with artificial intelligence in energy, and can you tell us something more about that?
Yeah, definitely. You know, first I would like to thank you for inviting me, and you know, the words even just told before are fully resonating with what Microsoft is actually doing. And we also have the carbon neutral initiative. So, you know, in less than 10 years, Microsoft will be carbon negative. And then in the next 20 years up to 2050, you know, Microsoft should actually remove all the historical emissions and, you know, contribute in that sense. And for that reason, the initiatives which are actually empowering our customers to be also carbon negative are going across. And as mentioned, you know, it's go hand in hand with the digital transformation and change of the industry. Why Microsoft in discussing about the energy sector? You know, 5 or 6 years ago, you would consider Microsoft as somebody who is producing Office and Excel and having the Windows on your computers, which are broken from time to time. And still, that Windows is maybe not the perfect, but we actually learned with our customers more about their industry trends and actually challenges. And I would probably say that today we understand the, let's say, market forces and challenges in the energy industry by working on some real case examples. So the penetration of renewable energy, changing the way how the constant production is currently dependent on the volatile green energy generation, you know, complexity of the grids which are aging, and actually you need to achieve the greater flexibility, actually are creating a huge demand for collecting of data in order to provide insights for proper managing of the let's say decisions in the energy sector. If you also foresee the regulation which are changing and further limiting the existing models, it's obvious that you know, that amount of data is not something that can be processed in the human brain. And even if it can be processed in the human brain, it cannot be done in the amount of time which is expected currently. And therefore, you know, many companies are turning towards us in Microsoft. And, you know, I can elaborate on the project. I've been working with the electropower industry of Serbia. But prior to that, I might just share the broader, what are the areas in which we are applying artificial intelligence and supporting our customers. So, you know, the first one are related to the load forecasting, because this is actually essential in order to plan the production, trading, and everything which is related to the industry. And one of the projects I'm very proud of, which we realized here in Serbia with apps, is actually bringing in artificial intelligence to support human intelligence to be more accurate in forecasting the load on the Serbian market. We expanded this with forecasting for the electricity prices on the open markets. So, it's also something which is quite important. Then what we are also doing in the energy sector, there are heavy investments into fixed assets, and we are actually using artificial intelligence to inspect on the grids. So it means that, if you have the infrastructure which is spanning across 4 kilometers, actually thousands of kilometers, we are using some technology to help and assess the condition, and actually to navigate the crews which are maintaining those equipment. We are also using it for predictive maintenance, as mentioned before, and also for the route optimizations and all kind of the things which are going in that segment. Also, something which is quite important, and it is related to the change of the model, because before you had single consumers of energy. Currently, you have the consumers which are producers at the same time. So we are actually providing the energy suppliers better insights on how the energy is used in the homes or the smart or the small companies, and actually providing that kind of flexibility. Will you charge your electric car at the moment, or you will use it your other sources of energy? It's flexibility on trading and using the electricity. And I would conclude, and we can then talk in more details about any of those segments. Analysis around serving the customers better, providing the churn rates because of the opening on the electricity markets, because this is something what is also very important in the region, at least what we are seeing, because fight for the customer is going on, and everybody wants to keep those ones which are stable and willing to contribute to the energy sector as well.
Thank you, Marko. Well, I'm glad to hear more and more in different conferences that big companies are planning to be carbon neutral, even carbon negative in the future. That's something probably 10-15 years ago was almost impossible. Of course, we will. I hope that we will have more time later to discuss more about the topic, because I'm wondering, is that even possible? But before that, we have Stéphane Rousselet. Stéphane is, as I said, he's a representative of younger generation, and but he already worked in both in company, in big oil and gas company, one of the biggest in the world, in Total, and then he worked in Bain as a consultant in both sides. But of course, he's the president of Young Professional Committee of World Petroleum Council, and he can share with us what are the standing point of future generation regarding the artificial intelligence, and in which direction energy sector will go regarding that.
Thank you, Goran, and thank you, FEFA, for inviting me today to this important conference. Maybe I will remove all my professional hats and speak more as an energy passionate on this topic. Because I think when we are looking at artificial intelligence, we are looking also at the future of this extremely exciting industry, and that's on what I want to talk today. When you look at artificial intelligence, in my opinion, and I think a lot has been said by Iván and Marko already, you are looking at 4 main components. The problems to solve, and I think that's critical, because at the end of the day, that's where artificial intelligence is creating value. If you don't have very complex problems, there is limited value attached to it. The quantity of data that you can use, create, generate, process to support the problem resolution and nurture your algorithm and the machine learning. The powerful machines that you need to run them and reach potential conclusions. And more importantly, perhaps, you need the right companies, the right environment in which you can deploy this solution, and the right talents, and I think Iván mentioned it already, to implement it on the right use cases. And I think the beauty of the energy industry, in my opinion, is that it brings most of these components all together. We have critical challenges to solve. They were already there, but they are accelerating. The society is asking us to produce clean, affordable, and reliable energy. Iván mentioned already what you could bring on the clean energy front with the climate challenges. Marko mentioned some of the key highlights on the reliability side. How do you ensure that in more and more complex energy systems, more decentralized, with a critical role of electricity, you ensure that the supply and the demand are properly balanced, and that's more difficult when you have renewable energy than when you have a stable supply of nuclear power, for example. And you need to ensure also affordability. And affordability, it's the question is how can you use data, algorithm, and other to reduce progressively even more the cost attached to the energy solutions we are using. I mean, the levelized cost of wind or solar are going down and down, but the question now is how can you use data and artificial intelligence to even go a step further and provide even more affordable energy to the world. The second pillar is that we have a lot of data, and that's historical in the energy industry, and it's accelerating with electrification, because you tend to have more and more of it with all the electrons that are being produced, stored, and consumed at different parts of the grid at the moment. If I look at the entire value chain, and maybe two examples to avoid entering into too much details, you have the exploration phase, for example, on the oil and gas, where we have been generating amounts of data for many years already in seismic campaigns through sensors, used supercalculators to process it and evaluate the potential of reservoirs. But now we are seeing also this emerging at the end of the value chain, where in electricity distribution, with the deployment of smart grids or smart appliances within our household, we are generating more and more data that can be used to improve the overall efficiency of the energy system. You need powerful machines, and I think that's something the energy industry should be proud of, and maybe a reason why you may want to work or continue working in this exciting industry. Some of the most powerful supercalculators around the world are actually working directly or indirectly for the energy industry. When I joined Total, we were in the first version of Pangea, which is the supercalculator used for seismic collection and processing. We are now in the third generation, and it's the first, or it should be around the first private supercalculator around the world. And so this is a very huge potential to process all these amount of data that we are collecting and to solve the critical problems that we have in front of us. Finally, to make this extremely successful, you need the right organization and the right talents to do this. And that's where maybe I would put a bit more nuance compared to what has been said before. I think that yes, we have extremely interesting examples from Shell, Chevron, Schlumberger, Total, and others on how you can apply artificial intelligence, machine learning, but just digital to solve our problems. But I think we are a nascent industry on this front. If you compare us to banking or retail, and there are a lot of things that we can still do in the years to come to accelerate the penetration of this solution, to hire the best talents around the world who are still going to work for the Google and the like, in order to solve the challenges that we have in our industry. And I do believe, like Iván and Marko mentioned earlier, that with the commitment of net zero made by many oil and gas companies, but also utility companies for the years to come, there is not only good reasons to accelerate, but probably no other alternative.
Thank you, Stéphane. You mentioned one important thing I always mentioning when we are discussing about the new technology is the cost. if we use the huge technology to solve some problem possible to solve with calculator, we are missing the point. But of course, and I totally agree with you. Of course, organization, I will have some questions about the human capital after. Now, Mr. Nikola Jeličić, working with OMV. OMV is one of the biggest regional oil and gas company, and they're introducing, and he's personally working in some project linked with artificial intelligence, where they're using, in which field they're using artificial intelligence, how artificial intelligence is helping them to solve their problems, and of course to produce, I suppose, the better service for customers. Nikola, are you with us?
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, and I listened carefully. Hello, can you hear me? I think I'm online.
You're online?
Yeah. Okay, great. So first of all, I would like to just introduce in a couple of sentences OMV. OMV is a company which has both of the oil and gas business, as well as the downstream side, and now even more than before, is also deeply involved in the chemicals and materials value chain. The business that I am responsible for, and where I am driving the digital strategy and the transformation journey, is the downstream business. Nevertheless, I would like to say that usually within our company, we look into upstream when it's about references on how to deal with a lot of data, because upstream is data, and I think Stéphane said it very, very precisely. That's where the real huge quantities of data have always come from, and where the pressure to analyze and generate learnings out of data have been highest. Nevertheless, I mean, however profane this may seem, but we are also pressed by business problems, sometimes not even so big as the topic of decarbonization, and not even so long term. We even in our retail business, you can imagine that there are many ways to prevent dryouts at the filling station. So basically, not having fuel at the time when you may have huge demand piling up. If you use sensors, which is operations technology, if you monitor those sensors and win data out of that technology, and have some preventive or prescriptive models which can basically drive your countermeasure. So linking OT to IT and data analytics, and then having the real managerial action on that, you can actually have a full advanced analytics or even artificial intelligence use case, even in the let's say to the outside world. And this is I think the luxury of the of the oil and gas industry, is that you can look to other industry for good references. In that case, you can look at retail industries as regards the stock out prevention, let's put it like that, to make it more generic and not just linked to oil. We also have a flourishing trading business, which is also a big client of artificial intelligence use cases. Obviously, always trying to be ahead of the game of the competitors and earn an extra margin in the trading markets. This applies to gas, power, and oil trading in the case of OMV, and also is a topic that I'm looking into. So I'm actually very, very keen to follow Stéphane's structure. So problems to solve begin at the filling station, and they don't seem to stop if you go from that to the, let's say, left of the value chain and look into the asset-heavy use cases, look at the supply and demand-driven use cases. And this is where I want to focus on just very briefly. With COVID, I mean, as you can imagine, a huge refining company such as OMV is basically uses its sales to distribute the outputs of its refinery. With COVID, this changed completely because the profile of our demand changed. It shifted from aviation to basically plastic. So people were actually using face masks much more than they were actually flying. So if you can imagine that shift, it meant for us that we need to find new ways to actually manage our business coming from the demand rather than from the supply side, which doesn't mean that we should lose the supply and trading margins that we have or the refining margins that we have from the utilization, again, subject to predictive analytics use cases coming out of the assets areas, but also we had to come much more from the demand side and refine our pricing model, our demand models, which also include pricing as well. So that was not quite a full mistake from my end. What I would like to, so this created a new problem, which it was to be solved immediately, and obviously it wasn't solved immediately by a full-scale technology. Luckily enough, we had started our journey before, and we declared data lake based on a Microsoft platform, which I would just like to mention because Marko is in the call, where we started pooling data, and this was a very let's say important step to start pooling data already before defining the final use cases that you want to generate out of that. And this is basically now coming to my role and what I would like to finish up upon. Basically, my mission is to drive business value through use of technology. And it's not always easy to have the technology available exactly when you need it. You can get very close to that by using, let's say, advanced analytics platforms as a service, and which puts you in a place where you are just, let's say, centimeters away from generating value from a use case, rather than building up the platform from the very beginning. And this is where I think companies like OMV, who are very much used to generating immediate value from digitalization, which I think is the right way, need to be also very clear about the priorities in their long-term investments, including technologies which support data analytics, and get, let's say, this one step closer to generating value from future use cases. And these future use cases go into the areas which Iván mentioned at the very beginning, which are driven by decarbonization, which are driven by higher utilization of their assets, given the new product mix that they will have to deliver, and finally are driven by the new profiles and more granular profiles of the customers who finally buy the goods and services. And this is what we are focusing on now, to build, let's say, a critical readiness in each of these areas: customer, process, assets, have the foundation in place, and the end-to-end value chain, that we can basically hop on the bus, you know, when it has already left the station, so that we have some speed in running after the bus from the very beginning.
Thank you, Nikola. I agree with you that market is changing, and consumption model is changing, especially with Corona. Very, very fast, and probably using the technology can help the companies to produce better value for them and for customers. Somehow, when we speak about the energy sector, we assume that the energy sector is, when we come to technology, more traditional than some other sectors. And in past, that was critical for the sector was the resource, how to find resource and how to use them. But somehow with artificial intelligence and with technology in general, we can now better use resources, and somehow that's only my opinion, but I want to hear your opinion about that. The human capital is becoming critical, and that's also important for FEFA as a faculty. That's a general question for everybody. How you see that point and what we need to do in the future to have better human capital in order to use artificial intelligence in energy sector. Iván, we can start with you if you want.
Okay, I mean, I think you raise a very important point, who is the need for human capital. And I think this is going to be a real game changer for the industry, because traditionally, power utilities or gas utilities and oil and gas companies tended to be very endogamic. No? They used to hire people within their own sector, and people, once they enter one company, they stay in that company for many years. But right now, the new talent that is needed in those companies is a talent that companies in the energy sector are going to need to compete with companies outside the energy sector. So for example, you need to attract candidates that may be willing to go to Microsoft or to Amazon or to Google or to other places. No? So you are not just looking for the petroleum engineers or the gas experts. You are looking for talent that have many options. So therefore you need to build a value proposition for those candidates to join the industry, who, by the way, as Goran, you mentioned, is a very technical industry, although in some cases it's perceived as being a very old-fashioned industry. But my belief is that we are a very technologically advanced industry.
Yeah, thank you.
If you let me continue, you know, it's because I would really love to contribute here, as I've been working not only with energy industry, but with some other, and I can compare. So I would put 2 points. First, energy sector is very rich with data. And the second thing is the energy sector is full with engineers which are capable to very fastly and very rapidly understand the concepts we are discussing. And, you know, when we started and created the teams, we actually came from three different sides. First was the business knowledge from the experts from energy sector. Then we had that technology layer we supported from Microsoft. And then we had that very specific data science layer in order to achieve with the best model. And, you know, one of the things when we discuss about human capital was the fear I felt on the first meeting, because AI came to our mind. You mentioned at the very beginning, you mentioned Terminator, you know. And the people in the room felt like Microsoft with AI is there to remove their jobs. And we actually were there to confirm that it will only empower them and make them, you know, the better version of themselves to enjoy more in the jobs they love. And as an outcome of our project, they employed 4 new employees in the areas they didn't have before. So, you know, this is one of the things. But for that, you need to have the, you know, true partnership and trust. Because what I'm also seeing in every AI project I've been contributing so far, at the very beginning, I cannot commit on the outcome, because many things are there which might sacrifice the results, or which will not be sufficient to provide the results we expect. And the most important thing is that trust and the willing to experiment. And with that, we can reach the results. In the project we realized together, you know, we had return on investment in only 6 months after use. In some other, it will not be the case. But we need to have, you know, that trust, that culture, and this will actually attract the people to be in the industry. But the industry is super attractive, you know, comparing to some others. It was much more efficient and faster than in some other cases.
I'm glad to hear that. Stéphane?
Maybe if you let me continue and build on what has been said. I think when you look at human capital, I see at least 3 topics that comes to my mind. So the first one is attraction. And I think that's a major question for the energy industry and for the oil and gas in particular going forward. It's how do you bring the best talents, the computer engineers, to the table. And I think there was a survey released in France last week by Universum. If you look at the best business schools and the best engineering schools, where they want to go, in the top 10 for each, there is only one energy company, it's EDF, and that's pretty it. And I could look, if I look at results all around the world, I would probably see a similar trend. So when we were in Russia, we actually realized that banking, consulting, tech were much more attractive than the oil and gas in a country that is oil and gas driven by itself. And that's one of the topics that we'll try to capture through an international survey that we launch with the World Petroleum Council in the coming days, because I do believe it's a critical question. Then when you have managed to attract talents, you need to retain them. And I think that's another area where our industry has a lot of progress to do. How do you make sure that the existing talents are actually transitioning and building the skills that are needed for artificial intelligence, but more importantly for the new skills you will need in the future? Moving to a net zero strategy will call for lots of different skills than the one we have currently. And so therefore, and maybe it's my third point, and I will stop here, it calls for a change of paradigm in the way we govern the question of human capital in the companies. You need to make sure that we are faster and more agile in the way we take decisions, that we break the silos in the organization, because it's there. I have a very good example with Microsoft, with one of the energy companies, where they had a beautiful concept, huge return on investments, but they were struggling because the different departments of the company were not able to talk to each other. And so you can even have the best talents, if the culture of the organization is not smooth enough to make it happen, you will keep struggling. And this will mean changing the way we work internally, but also probably look at partnerships, because we will never have the full answer to these questions. I remember a good partnership between Microsoft and ENGIE, for example, on a project called Darwin, to optimize the production of decentralized energy systems. That's where you get the two best pieces of the puzzle to make it work.
Thank you. Nikola, you want to join us on this topic? Is OMV having any problem with acquiring talents? Okay, waiting for Nikola. Is there any question from the auditorium? If you want to, if you have some questions, that's the right moment to do. We have 8 more minutes. Well, maybe more. If there's any question, we are ready to answer. Well, raise your hand. We're waiting for question. The second, for me, also very important question in this area is the companies in the energy sector are huge. They're probably one of the biggest companies in that state. What is the role in your opinion, what is the role of the state, of the government, in bringing technology and helping introducing technology in the energy sector? Is there any role, or that's better for government not to be involved at all? And how can the government help in that? Is there any opinion about that?
Maybe I can get started, Goran, on this one.
Yeah,
I think the governments have an important role to play. I mentioned it when we were talking about the very strong machines earlier in my speech. The first 10 biggest supercalculators of the world, they are the results of partnership between state-owned universities, between research centers, because they require extremely high investments with uncertain returns, and therefore the governments have a strong role to play in as a catalyzer of this investment and building these capabilities. We mentioned human capital. I still think that the state has an important role also in building the right education tracks to make sure that the talents required for this world of tomorrow actually ready. And we see in the post-pandemic world, or at least in what is becoming to emerge out of it, that the public money will play an important role in the energy transition, in particular, if the money is well directed where it's actually required.
Just adding to that point of Stéphane and working in Austria, I can confirm that the government assistance that companies can receive, especially during and post-pandemic, have been quite a big driver for innovation in the industry, and especially if they are linked to long-term goals such as environmental protection and decarbonization. I think this is a key incentive, because in the end, the industry is ready. The pricing is just, or wasn't right yet. And the key accelerator is coming from the industry, and coming from the government, of course. And this, I mean, on one hand, it starts with incentives. It probably continues with influencing the overall education system, so that it kind of merges the specific in-depth expertise in certain engineering areas with a now generic technology expertise, which requires the knowledge of data. And I think bridging these two, and then finally creating a competitive or a good, healthy environment for startups, which is actually or new, smaller technology innovative companies, which are the sources of our human capital to a certain degree. This is what we can wish for from any local environment. And of course, it doesn't all have to be local, because we are talking about technologies which enable us to work remotely. So I think if we have a common such approach, either Europe-wide or across multiple countries within a given region, this can work very well.
I would like to add two things to what has been said, is that energy infrastructures are critical for the development of a country. I mean, we cannot afford to live without electricity, without gas, without energy, no? And I think there are two key roles of the government. One is to make sure that the security and the integrity of those grids and networks are fully protected. And here I'm talking about the need for support in terms of cybersecurity and protecting the systems against any potential attack from other parties. And second, I think it's also very important to regulate, or at least to ensure that the information about clients, about people, about citizens is used in a fair way. No? So I would say the government should guarantee that there is what I would like to call a responsible artificial intelligence, no? That protects the information and the data about the citizens.
Yeah, we didn't open the question, but maybe just a few words. The security is becoming in digital world very, very important. Can artificial intelligence help us on that, or that's some different story or different topic?
No, I think definitely it can help. It really can help, because you can have access to a lot of information. You can track in a much better way potential threats and attacks.
You know, in order for me not to navigate away from the topic, but actually artificial intelligence in Microsoft originated within the cybersecurity tools based on the telemetry which has been collected based on the behaviors of the computers and users. You know, I would not like to, you know, remove the topic discussing about cybersecurity, but that resilience of the critical infrastructure is mentioned in something which is very critical. And on top of that, it's something we are building along with those enterprise-grade solutions without customers, without any discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. If there's no other questions, can you conclude in 2 sentences what can we expect from artificial intelligence in energy sector in next decade? difficult question. I'm sorry about that. Who want to be first?
I think artificial intelligence is going to be a game changer in the industry. It will provide a lot of benefits, not only for the companies, but also for the society.
Thank you. I hope.
Maybe to build on what Iván said, I would say that it has a lot of potential, but there is still a lot to be unlocked. And that's probably the challenge that we have ahead.
I'm glad that you raised the question on a 10-year horizon and not shorter, because that's, I think, the time frame which we are talking about to really unlock, the potential of the largest use cases, those that we fantasized about 2 years ago, and when we reached the limits of, the resources for implementation. And I don't mean just financial, I also mean the human resources. And I think the 10-year horizon is the right one to look at. I expect significant impacts on all the dimensions of our total performance. So the performance on decarbonization as a key impact on society, impact thereby on energy transition, and also the impact on operational performance, which actually keeps us going the next 10 years while we wait for those results to happen.
I can only say that I'm looking forward to those 10 years and have nothing to add on what Nikola, Iván, and Stéphane just said. The only thing I'm unhappy about it is that we did it virtually, because I feel that we had many topics really to discuss and maybe to tackle some real life challenges and problems with a different perspective with that, I would say, super rich experience the other panelists has here in the sector.
Okay, thank you everybody. We're in the end. We have two more minutes. I just want to thank you everybody for joining us and for sharing your experience. As you said, we just opened the topic. Maybe there can be one big conference, and we have several topics opened here. But in the end, I just want to say that when this crisis, COVID crisis, end, maybe the only positive things will stay after is that digitalization is faster during the COVID crisis. And when you ask the company what influenced the most digitalization in the last 2 years, that's I'm pretty sure COVID. But as you said, we still need some time to unlock potential of artificial intelligence and digitalization and digital transformation in energy sector, and I'm pretty sure the energy sector will know how to use it in the next decade, and then we will get the less pollution, the better service for customers, and that artificial intelligence will be, as Iván said, the game changer in this sector. Thank you very much, and I'm expecting you in some year when in next year probably again in Belgrade, and we can reopen this topic if you agree. Thank you very much, and I wish you good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, and
Bye.
also to the other panelists. Many thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, thank you, Goran, and thank you to all the panelists, Iván, Stéphane, Marko, and Nikola. It was really a pleasure to have you here virtually in Belgrade. And as Goran said, not only this panel, but every other panel, I think it's a conference in its own right. And I do hope that we'll be able to welcome you here in Belgrade either later this year or perhaps next year. Sada bih se ponovo vratio na srpski, pošto naš sljedeći panel je na srpskom jeziku. Njegova tema je Industrija 4.0 u zdravstvu. On jeste naš poslednji panel za danas, ali u ovim današnjim okolnostima svakako ne i najmanje važan. Njime će moderirati profesor Radivoj Mitrović sa Mašinskog fakulteta i ostanite sa nama još ovih par minuta. Sljedeći panel počinje tačno u 14 časova.